Have you ever wondered why your father or father figure treated you the way that they did? Was it insecurity, fear, jealousy, control? And how do you find empathy for someone who caused you deep pain without excusing what they did? Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beloved. Last time we spoke, we were talking about the different responses: fight, flight, fawn, freeze. But now we're moving on from that mini-series, and today's conversation is one that sits in the tension between understanding and accountability. Many of us who carry father wounds have asked, why? Why did he abandon me? Why did he tear me down? Why did he compete with me or try to control, silence, or sabotage me? For some of us, the hurt came not from a stranger, but from someone who was supposed to protect and nurture us. And as we heal, we begin to see something we couldn't before. Behind every act of mistreatment was a wound in him. But here's the question: how do we find empathy without minimizing our pain? How do we understand their brokenness without letting it break us again? When a father wounds his child, whether through absence, criticism, control, or jealousy, it often stems from his own unhealed pain. Some common roots of fatherly mistreatment include insecurity. He felt inadequate and projected that fear onto you. When your light shined, his unhealed ego felt threatened. Jealousy or competition. He saw in you what he never became. So instead of celebrating your growth, he tried to diminish it to protect his fragile identity. Fear of loss of control. He confused love with dominance. Maybe he was raised in a household where authority equaled love, so he replicated what he knew. Shame and failure. He couldn't face his own regrets. Sometimes fathers sabotage their children's success because it reminds them of what they didn't achieve. Emotional immaturity. He lacked the tools to handle vulnerability, so he replaced tenderness with power, silence, or withdrawal. The truth is, and we've all heard this before, hurt people hurt people. But as God heals us, we learn not just to name the pain, but to trace it back to the root. Empathy is not about excusing sin. It's about understanding the brokenness behind the behavior so that you can release the hold that it has on you. When we begin to see our fathers or father figures as wounded men, not monsters, something shifts in us. It doesn't make their choices okay, but it allows us to stop personalizing their actions. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start realizing something was wrong in him. Empathy turns anger into wisdom. It helps us to forgive without pretending that it didn't hurt. It helps us to detach emotionally from the chaos while still praying for their redemption. Luke chapter 23 verse 34 says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Even Jesus, betrayed, beaten, and abandoned, chose to see the ignorance behind their cruelty. That does not mean that he excused it. It means that he understood the blindness of broken humanity. So how can we balance understanding and boundaries? This is important. Empathy is not permission. You can understand why someone behaves the way that they do and still say no to mistreatment. Empathy without boundaries becomes enabling. Boundaries without empathy can harden into bitterness. But together, they create wisdom and peace. You can pray for your father's healing and still protect your own. You can hope for his redemption and still step away from his dysfunction. You can love him from afar and still honor God in your heart. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything that you do flows from it." Your healing does not depend on proximity. Sometimes the most compassionate thing that you can do for the both of you is to create distance. When you start to understand your father's wounds, you may begin to notice something else, how his pain shaped your patterns. Maybe his rejection made you overcompensate. Maybe his control made you fearful of confrontation. Maybe his absence made you chase love that always runs away. Empathy helps you to stop repeating the same cycles because you see where they began. It turns "he hurt me" into "that's where the pattern started." And it ends with me. Romans chapter 12 verse 21 says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Empathy is one of the ways we overcome. It breaks the generational pattern of hardness by choosing understanding over hatred. Here are today's reflection or journaling prompts. What emotions surface when I think about my father's wounds? Can I see where his actions came from without excusing them? How have his insecurities or fears influenced the kind of people that I've tolerated? What does empathy look like in practice for me? Does it mean prayer, distance, or simply releasing resentment? Today's affirmation is, I can hold empathy and accountability at the same time. I understand that my father's actions came from his pain, but his wounds are not mine to carry. I forgive him, not to excuse his choices, but to free my heart and honor my healing. And we're going to close on this verse from Colossians chapter 3 verse 13. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Forgiveness is the fruit of empathy, but empathy begins with perspective. When you understand the pain behind the behavior, you're no longer bound by it. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of Beloved. If this episode helped you to see your father or yourself with a little bit more compassion, I would love for you to let me know in the comments, or you can contact me at belovedwithsharice@gmail.com. And if you think that this episode would be helpful to someone else, please feel free to share it with that person if you're not there walking a similar road to healing. And make sure that you don't miss another episode by subscribing to my Substack, where you can also see the written notes for each episode. These episodes are also posted on YouTube and all podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, because I'm not sure where you're listening from, but it's available pretty much everywhere. And remember, understanding does not mean excusing. Boundaries can coexist with empathy, and healing begins the moment that you choose to see through God's eyes. Next episode, we will be continuing to look at forgiveness. I just wanted to precede that episode, which is going to be about misconceptions about forgiveness, by looking at empathy. So until next time, stay rooted in truth, wrapped in grace, and never forget you are beloved.